Next Tuesday marks the end of Ramadan, the Muslim holy month. And at a time when religion is so often a source of division, well, one house of worship in Washington, D.C. stands as home to a surprising unity. Anna Werner pays a visit.
Every Friday inside this historic church, there's a call to prayer answered by hundreds of Muslims surrounded by Christian icons. Two religions sharing the same space.
It starts with people understanding each other, and then it grows to religions understanding each other.
Farouk Syed has been organizing these Friday prayers ever since the Church of Epiphany opened its doors to the Muslim faithful who needed a place to worship 8 years ago. The prayers began with 50 people. Now there are over 300 who pray each week with the church's blessing.
It's our job to be the hands and feet of peace in the world, and how do we do that is by loving one another.
I don't know if they ever thought that Muslims would come here and pray and become one of the biggest congregations of Church of Epiphany.
So your congregation is much larger than the church's congregation?
Yes. This is the biggest congregation that Church of Epiphany has, the Muslim prayers.
Not only do they feed my stomach, but they also fed my soul.
50-year-old Saeed Bond is homeless. He converted to Islam in his 20s, but found this prayer service by chance 3 years ago. He's one of dozens of homeless people who are part of this congregation. He now helps prepare the sanctuary for Friday prayers. For Bond, the church has become more than just a place to pray.
Look at that. I'm not Christian, but I look at that. That's beautiful.
And during the prayers, we heard a sound, church bells.
It's amazing, it's amazing to see two things together. Who can imagine, church bells ringing and a Muslim giving a sermon? It's a moment of reflection for people who think that we are different. We are all the same. We are all the same.
Muslims and Christians in unity in a church bearing witness to an epiphany.
Dead fish are still floating down our waterways.
Fox 13 found out the high temperatures are part of the blame. The first reports of dead fish came in over the weekend.
Yeah, Fox 13's Jim Spiewak took Drone 13 to see just how bad it really is.
The waterfront is usually the place to be, but lately up close, people have been seeing this.
It's going to stink. I don't want to be around anything that stinks.
Rosalind Ranjufo lives in Memphis. Her family does not.
Oh, I just brought my family here, so I wouldn't want them to be around that.
Yeah.
That's the first time they're here.
First impressions are everything.
Exactly. I want them to come back.
While we're very happy to spot them here, it's hard to miss the unwanted visitors floating down the Wolf River near Bun Island, making first-timers to Memphis think twice about getting too close to the water.
Honestly, now that I know about it, yes, I would not want to.
From up here, you wouldn't think the hot temperatures sucked oxygen out of the water, causing more than 5,000 fish to die. But you can see that number will go up with the hundreds of dead fish still floating down the river.
Yes, I am. I'm going to try to stay on the other side now.
A worker told me off camera cleanup efforts started over the weekend. And with such a pretty skyline, hopefully the shoreline can be cleaned up in time for the holiday.
Park is a very popular place for folks to walk around the lake, but some walkers are noticing an unusual smelly scenery.
These are pictures of the wetland reserve. Fish are scattered all across the water. Most of them are on the south side of the water, right behind Rose Holman. Beaver County Parks Department says this isn't anything abnormal. It's part of a yearly cycle where fish don't have enough oxygen due to a lack of rain and the hot temperatures.
With the warm weather that we've had, that everybody I'm sure has noticed, 90 degrees and sunny every day, and not a lot of rain combines together to kind of not help us out so well on our fish population.
Grossman says the population may go down but should not see a shortage. Also, there are no issues with the swimming lake. A big weekend indeed for parks and lakes all around the valley.
Phoenix man is in the hospital after being bitten by a mosquito in his own yard.
The man contracted the West Nile virus and now he is paralyzed. This is serious stuff. Danielle Miller joins us with his story. You hear about this, but you never think it's that serious.
Yeah, that's right, John and Carrie. According to Maricopa County, there's only been 8 reported cases of West Nile so far this year, and they tell us that many of these cases actually go unreported because the symptoms are not that severe. Well, that definitely was not the case for this Phoenix man that you're about to see here.
It really is, it's shocking, you know, that the littlest thing, a little teeny bug can just, put you in the dirt.
Nicholas Cornelius knows that reality all too well. About 2 weeks ago, he was bit by a mosquito at his home near 43rd Avenue in Greenway. A few days after that, he started to have severe flu-like symptoms, followed by paralysis in his legs. His wife rushed him here to Honor Health Deer Valley Medical Center, where he's been for nearly 2 weeks.
My left leg started shutting down first, where I couldn't put weight on it. I could barely walk, and then my right leg never really went all the way away, but there's like barely any like muscle in there.
After numerous tests, doctors discovered Cornelius was suffering from West Nile virus. According to the CDC, less than 1% of people who get West Nile have severe symptoms like this. Cornelius is still recovering and trying to regain his strength.
I walk back and forth to the door, 2 times a day, and it really I'm sweating and everything else like that. It's crazy. From 2 weeks ago, I could, run around with my kids and all that, and then now I can't, even walk.
Aside from the physical symptoms of the virus, Cornelius says the hardest part about it is being away from his wife and 2 kids, 3-year-old Mateo and 5-month-old Macy.
I just miss them all, a lot. And I just want to get better and get out of here so I can just be with my family. Haven't seen them in 2 weeks, and it's like, you take so many things for granted in life, So I just want to get out. I want to get better.
And there is no telling when Nicholas will be getting out of the hospital. And as you can imagine, his medical bills continue to rack up. His family has started a GoFundMe account. You can find a link to that on our website, fox10phoenix.com.
Well, 5 weeks now before the start of the Olympics in Rio, police say a mutilated body has washed up on Copacabana Beach, where the beach volleyball competition will be held. This horrific discovery comes as Olympics organizers deal with a raft of problems, including severe pollution in the venues for sailing, rowing, and other water sports. Ben Tracy is there.
The brown stuff there, that's all raw sewage?
Yes.
We flew over Rio with Mario Moscatelli, a biologist who's been documenting the city's vast water pollution problem for the past 20 years.
This is just unreal. This water is black.
He hoped the Olympics would force Rio to clean it up.
We had 7 years, and our authorities didn't do almost anything. This is a toilet.
Raw sewage still flows from Rio's poor neighborhoods right into the water.
It sounds crude, but this is basically like flushing a giant toilet into the ocean.
Yes.
In the marina where Olympic sailors will launch their boats, we saw a giant plume of sewage streaming into the water. Tests found disease-causing viruses in Rio's waters 1.7 million times the level that would be considered hazardous in the U.S.
The problem is not just sewage, it's also trash. Tons of it floating here in the bay, and some athletes say they're worried about running into it.
Aranza Gamusio is an Olympic sailor from Chile.
Are you worried that the trash might impact the competition?
We've seen it in other boats that they've collided with, maybe it's a chair, whatever, it can be anything.
Oceanographer David Z says the Brazilian government promised to install 8 treatment plants on Rio's polluted rivers. They built just 1. They promised to treat 80% of the sewage flowing into Guanabara Bay and are only treating about half.
So if you had to grade the job the government has done cleaning up the water, what grade would you give them?
D.
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 So they haven't done a very good job.
No.
It's easy to criticize.
Guido Gelle is with Rio's environmental department. Why has Rio not done what it promised to do?
Well, this is an interesting question. The problem is the sewage systems, because it's not easy, it's very expensive. And for Olympic Games, there are no problems with the surface of the bay in the place where the games will be.
But it's hard to ignore that one of the most beautiful places on Earth might not be ready for its close-up. Ben Tracy, CBS News, Rio de Janeiro.
Well, new tonight, crews in Berks County are very busy trying to fix this large sinkhole that opened up today. Chopper 3 flying over the huge hole on Abington Drive in Wyomissing. About 8 homes and 2 businesses do not have water right now. We're told new gas lines were installed in the same spot just 2 days ago. So the water department is trying to figure out if that led to the sinkhole. They hope to finish the repairs by the end of the night.
History was made today when the Defense Department lifted one of the last bans on service in the armed forces. Transgender people will now be allowed to serve openly, and they will be eligible for any medically necessary care, including surgery. David Martin is at the Pentagon tonight.
Transgender people were the last service members who could be kicked out not for something they had done, but simply because of who they were. Defense Secretary Carter ended that today.
Effective immediately, transgender Americans may serve openly, and they can no longer be discharged or otherwise separated from the military just for being transgender.
Estimates of the number of transgender people in the military range from a low of 4,000 to a high of 11,000 out of a total force of 2 million. Army Reserve Captain Sage Fox found her career put on hold after she changed genders, even though she says it made her a better officer.
Transitioning has allowed me to be better as a leader. I've gotten rid of the distraction of worrying about concealing who I really was.
Fox had to rely on private insurance to cover her surgery, but from now on, the military will cover the cost of sex change operations approved by a doctor.
Our doctors will treat them and give them medically necessary treatment according to the protocols.
Once a service member switches gender, they would also switch to the barracks, bathrooms, and showers used by their new gender. The decision comes after a year's study during which Secretary Carter personally met with transgender service members.
They've deployed all over the world, serving on aircraft, submarines, forward operating bases, and right here in the Pentagon.
The U.S. military is not a world leader when it comes to treating transgender service members equally. 18 other countries already allow them to serve openly in uniform. Josh?
The financial service company Standard & Poor's has cut the credit rating of the European Union after the British vote to leave. A rating agency says EU's status as a safe haven for investments is now down to a AA rating, which is a downgrade from the previous AA+ status. The move will increase borrowing costs for the 28-member bloc. A leave vote has had a detrimental effect on the economy. It's wiped a record $3 trillion off global shares, and the pound fell to its lowest level in 31 years against the dollar. Prime Minister David Cameron also warned yesterday that the UK faces troubled economic times ahead.
Today, a military base outside Washington was locked down after someone reported seeing a gunman. This happened at roughly the time a security drill was to begin. For a while, it wasn't clear what was real and what was part of the test. Here's Chris Van Cleve.
Confusion and miscommunication over a possible gunman near the Malcolm Grow Medical Center prompted the lockdown of Joint Base Andrews outside the nation's capital for nearly 2 hours, starting around 9 this morning. That's when the base tweeted, "It is currently on lockdown due to a report of an active shooter. All personnel are directed to shelter in place." As officers and dogs cleared the hospital, those inside streamed out of the building with arms raised, prompting extensive live media coverage. Brad Jordan works on Andrews.
It was what appeared to be a very real and dire situation.
Word of the scare at Andrews, home of Air Force One, surprised Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson, who was testifying before Congress.
We do have, as reflected on the news, an unfolding situation at Andrews Air Base, which may require that I take a break from this session
The base had planned what it described as a no-notice active shooter drill just 2 days after the attack in Turkey. At about the time the exercise began, the report of a gunman was called in from the medical facility on the other side of the base. Finally, a statement posted on Twitter explained there was misidentification of the security force's emergency services team who were conducting a routine inspection of the facility. Secretary of Defense Ash Carter.
I thought the response was strong and solid. So that's the good news. The bad news is that it appears to have been a mistake, and we'd like to reduce the number of mistakes made in this way, no question about it.
Joint Base Andrews, the primary point of departure for the president and other dignitaries. Josh, Vice President Joe Biden delayed his departure for Ohio today because of this scare.